Wait, why are you going to Cleveland? Do they even have trains there? Whenever I would tell somebody about my plans the weeks leading up to the trip, they would ask me one of those two questions. Turns out, yes, Cleveland does have a transit system. And if you like transit that's just slightly weird, you'll have to check this place out. What am I talking about? Well, today we are visiting a subway station that has a classic skyscraper on top, a hidden abandoned station that's temporarily open again, tracks shared between subway trains and trolleys, America's first airport rail connection, and a station with a parking lot so big, the parking lot has its own station. Welcome to Cleveland. This is the RTA.
Hey everyone, I'm Tom. I'm at the Detroit bus station.
Now I'm on a Greyhound bus. And now I'm in Cleveland. Well, sort of. I'm at a Greyhound station in a suburban lot outside of Cleveland. So it seems that Cleveland's Greyhound station is the latest victim of the Flix cuts. About a week ago, I got an email saying that the drop-off location in Cleveland had changed. Now it's going to be here instead of at a location near downtown. Actually, for me personally, it works out a little bit better because right across the parking lot is an RTA station, and I'm here to review the RTA. Now, would it have been nice if the driver didn't drive to the wrong place and spend about half an hour getting to the right place? Probably, but we're going to make the most of the time we have. Brook Park Station opened in April 1969. Nearby is a Ford Motor Company plant that builds valves. The station is an interchange between the Red Line, city buses, and of course, since a few weeks ago, Greyhound. Let's buy a day pass. An individual pass costs $5. With a one-way fare being $2.50, the day pass is definitely a great deal. The Red Line uses a proof of payment system, meaning that you need to have your ticket with you when you're on the train. Stations do not have fare gates except for Tower City, the first station that we will be visiting. Brook Park Station completely renovated in 2017.
So far, my impression of Brook Park Station is very nice. It's clean, it's very spacious, there's a heated waiting room, and then the signage at the platforms is great.
So you can see the airport over there. The Red Line goes to the airport, which is really cool, but we'll be doing that ourselves at the very end of the video. We are on the Red Line, one of the rail lines operated by the RTA, which stands for the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority. The RTA operates 3 rapid transit lines. Apparently, it's customary in Cleveland to say you're riding the rapid. I don't know, I lived in Grand Rapids, Michigan for 4 years. I don't know if I could get used to that. Some people, including the RTA themselves, would argue that there are actually 4 rapid lines instead of 3. There is the Red Line, which uses heavy rail high-floor trains, and then there are the Green and Blue lines. These are light rail. They're descendants of Cleveland's interurban trolley system. They use vehicles with low-floor boarding. Top of those 3, there's the Waterfront line. The Waterfront line is considered the 4th line, but I don't really see it as its own line. That's because whenever it is in service, it's essentially just an extension of the Blue and Green lines that serves the waterfront. Opened in 1996, service was suspended on the Waterfront line in 2020 and did not come back until 2023. Today, it only runs sporadically, just when the Cleveland Browns play. This Red Line train we are on was built by Tokyu Car in Yokohama, Japan. Built between 1984 and 1985, they are over 40 years old at this point. While 60 cars were initially built, today 40 cars are left in service. Some of them are in 2-car sets, but some of them operate as a single car. We'll see one of those little trains later on in the video. It's a weird sight to see. The first section of the Red Line opened in 1955, between Windermere and Cleveland Union Terminal, the old name for today's Tower City Station. That same year, it was extended to West 117th Street, and for much of its route, the Red Line follows the existing railroad right-of-way. In 1958, it was extended to West Park and to the airport in '68, but more on that later. The name Red Line was introduced in 1979. The Red Line, as is the case with the Green and Blue Lines, uses standard gauge track and draws its power from an overhead wire electrified at 600 volts. Now, in the United States, it is more common for heavy rail metro trains to use a third rail. In other countries, you'll see more metro trains that use overhead wires, but there is a very good reason for the Red Line doing so, which we'll explore in just a little bit. The day I rode was a holiday, President's Day to be specific. Nevertheless, the Red Line was running at 15-minute intervals, even though there was a section where we were single tracking. Now, inside the train has the padded seats that you would come to expect with an old train, but I'm going to be honest, I didn't find the ride super comfortable. It was very bumpy and shaky. Nevertheless, they do have several features on board which I think are good, like baggage storage. It is a train that goes to the airport, and trash cans on board. Now, in Europe, these are very common, but you hardly see them in the United States, even though trains can get quite messy. So I think it's good that they have these. As we approach downtown Cleveland, we cross over the Cuyahoga River on the Cuyahoga Viaduct. The bridge was built in 1929, predating the Red Line by several decades. A few miles south of us, this river very famously caught fire in 1969 due to debris and oil in the water. Though the fire was short, and not the first time it had happened, the story became famous. It was the only thing that I ever learned about Cleveland in school, besides the story of when they launched a bunch of balloons into the air and consequently into the lake in 1986. The fact that the only things I knew about this city growing up were its two most famous ecological disasters is making me suspect that perhaps my teachers were secretly agents working for the state of Michigan. So far, the Red Line's been a good experience. I'm really impressed by the stations that I saw along the route. They were all very built out, like they had their own buildings and waiting areas and stuff. Platforms were a little narrow, but at least there's a comfortable place to wait for the train. The trains themselves were wide, the seats were nice and cushiony, very jerky though, like we braked a lot, we went over switches, and I was standing most of the time and it was a little bit hard, but some stuff to hold on to. Anyway, this is Tower City Station. This is where you can transfer to the blue and green light rail lines. And to do so, we need to go to the concourse and then to a separate part of this enormous station. Tower City is the only station in Cleveland to serve downtown, so it's the busiest station on the entire RTA network. Now, normally, there's a red line section and a green and blue line section. Tower City is undergoing a construction project right now, so the track that we arrived at is normally the westbound red line track, but right now it's serving eastbound trains. We'll take a look at where the westbound trains depart from at the end of the video. Once the train leaves, it's so quiet here. Today, the station is incorporated into Tower City Center, a shopping mall. But let's step outside for a second, because I promise, this station is unlike anything you've ever seen before. Okay, if you count the whole building as part of the train station, that has to be the coolest transit station in the country almost. It's a freaking skyscraper. The skyscraper, known as the Terminal Tower, has 52 floors and was the second tallest building in the world when it opened in 1928. It remained the tallest skyscraper in the US outside of New York City until 1964. It was built as an office tower above the Cleveland Union Terminal, which opened in 1930. While today the station only serves rapid transit lines, back in the day this was also the main railway station for almost all of the railroads that served Cleveland. Because the location was rather inconvenient, most railroads eventually abandoned Union Terminal. Amtrak actually even briefly served it in 1971, but by 1977, the very last train had left the station. Behind me, the Red Line concourse, in front of me, the Green and Blue Line concourse. I'm inside the Tower City Mall. There's some fare machines. In 1990, the new Tower City Center shopping mall opened in its place, as well as new platforms for the RTA. Now we're at the light rail half of the platform. Tower City Green and Blue Line platforms. It's the same station,
literally almost the same layout. It's just you have to go through the fare gates twice. Big difference is that the platforms here are low instead of high.
The blue and green lines are light rail, and they use these really clunky looking light rail vehicles built by Italian company Breda. Built in 1980, they're even older than the red line cars. The doors are low, but once you board, you immediately step up multiple steps. So it's basically a high floor vehicle, but the entrances are low because later on in the line, the stops are more trolley-like at sidewalk level. At Tower City, there are fare gates for all the lines, so you don't have to worry about paying on board. However, at the other stations, you have to pay at a machine next to the operator's cab. Here's the tricky thing. When to pay depends on what direction you're traveling. When going eastbound, leaving downtown, you pay when you board, like normal. However, going westbound, you have to walk to the front of the vehicle and pay when you get off. I can't really figure out why that is. My best guess is that it is a remnant of history, that most people would be expected to ride until downtown anyway, and so the fares could be collected all at once at the end. But if you know what the definitive answer is, let me know in the comments below.
Tri-C Campus District, first stop after Tower City, and really the main highlight of what I wanted to see in this system. You might have seen on maps that after Tower City, red, green, and blue follow the same route. There's only 2 tracks here though. They also use the same tracks. It makes sense. They use the same electrification system, same track width. So for this section of 3 stations, they also use the same tracks. Now the main difference, of course, is the height of the vehicle. We've got the high floor red line trains, low floor green and blue line trains. Well, there's a solution for that. A platform that's split into 2 halves. So half of it is low level, half of it is high level. Now, internationally, we see this in a few different places. I think a famous example is Randstadrail in the Netherlands, where the metro and the trams share tracks and the platforms have a very similar configuration. But in the United States, I believe this is the only place. That is exactly what I wanted to see, a high floor train running past the low platform. You can see how the doors are so much higher. And it's a single car train. A single car train on a subway line.
Food on the ground. So sad. Despite the name Tri-C Campus District, it's not a very easy or pleasant walk to get to Cuyahoga Community College. Interestingly, to leave the platform area, you have to cross the westbound track.
So these signs are red, even though I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's green line, blue line, but then the lines are red because that makes sense. On a red line train, let's go to the next stop.
So the next train to show up was a red line train, so I hopped on board for just one stop. From Tower City to East 55th, the tracks are shared between red, blue, and green. By the way, I really love the design of the station signage. Those blue and red signs with the rounded edges, I feel like that's what toys and stuff used to look like in my childhood, so it's a bit nostalgic. For most of this stretch, we run alongside the East 55th Street Rapid Transit Facility, which acts as the yard for all 3 lines. Looking at the tracks, you'll see the heavy rail red line cars and the light rail green and blue line cars all mixed together. Really, the only difference is the height of the doors.
Wow, seeing those low-level light rail cars past the high-level platforms almost looks even weirder. Anyway, we're at East 55th Street, another one of the shared stations. This is the last one. From here, I want to hop on a light rail train, but while we wait, let's look at the trains in the yard.
You can also see some interesting work vehicles. At East 34th Street, the high-level and low-level platforms were right next to each other, but at East 55th, there's a bit of a protected walkway connecting the two halves of the station.
Another interesting thing about these stations is they're the only light rail stations where the doors open on the left, which means payment is a little different.
These trains don't have a door in the front on the left side, so when you board at either Tri-C or East 55th, you have to walk up to the operator first, then pay your fare, then find a seat. In the opposite direction, when you reach either station, you have to get up, walk to the operator, and then walk back to a door to get off. Perhaps fare gates would be useful here. Anyway, the RTA is getting a big change soon. New trains. Siemens was selected to build 54 new light rail vehicles. The first 24 were ordered in 2023, with more options exercised since then. Construction began in October 2024. The first car is scheduled to be delivered this summer and will enter service on the Red Line in summer 2027, with green and blue service scheduled for 2028. Wait, what? Light rail on the Red Line? That's right, these light rail vehicles will have doors serving high platforms and doors serving low platforms. One new fleet will replace all the existing old trains. That's why there was some urgency for me to come here. It won't be long before the unique situation of trolleys sharing tracks with subways is history. Currently, the Red Line trains are a little bit wider than the green and blue lines, so in preparation for the new light rail vehicles, the Red Line platforms will be made wider. One question I have is about the shared stations. Will one of the two platforms be removed? Or will Red Line and green/blue line trains continue to stop at different parts of the platform? Seems like there's not really a reason to do that anymore. There is an additional advantage to a uniform, dual-height fleet. It will allow for more one-seat rides. Currently, a direct train from the airport to Shaker Heights or Van Aken is impossible because of the different platform heights. That barrier will be removed with the new trains, allowing for more direct service patterns. The RTA themselves hint at this on their own website. After Shaker Square Station, the blue and green lines split. I only took the blue line to the next stop, Drexmoor, because really I want to show you the green line in today's video. But the last two trains to come were blue line trains. So now let's walk to Coventry Station on the green line.
Wow, this area is beautiful, and it's here thanks to the train. This area was developed as a peaceful, luxurious, quiet place to live, and then you could commute into the city, and it's retained much of that character. Now, I walked from the blue line to the green line because the green line is really cool. It travels through this green median down Shaker Boulevard, and at the end of the line there's something funny, but this station has retained its old station building. Now, I peeked inside, it's empty. Maybe I could live here? That could get me to move to Cleveland. Probably not, but I'm incredibly impressed. This is beautiful. There are not many other places where you see houses like this at light rail stations.
Coventry Station has a station building that was built in 1920. It was built because back then, this was actually a transfer station. Today, the house sits empty, but it's amazing that it's been preserved.
The Green Line schedule is pretty bad today. They're supposed to be running every half hour. It's President's Day, but I think they're only running every hour in reality. So I'm gonna see if I can get on this one. And when I get on, because it is an eastbound train, I can just pay when I board.
As we ride the Green Line down the median of Shaker Boulevard, it's time to introduce you to two brothers, Oris Paxton and Mantis James Van Swearingen. Yes, his real name was Mantis. These two bros are responsible for basically everything that we've seen today. The two brothers were property developers, best known for the creation of the Shaker Heights neighborhood starting in 1909. They had bought land that previously belonged to the Shaker community and built up a residential neighborhood that was meant to be a green oasis close to the city. Their plan included some good parts, like how there were strict architectural rules meant to keep it beautiful, but Shaker Heights was also a product of its time, and so there are some stains on its history, such as the fact that black people were banned from living here. Early on, the Van Swearingens realized that a train would help Shaker Heights to grow. So they built one. The Cleveland and Youngstown Railway opened in 1913, forming the first part of today's Green Line. Trains ran into downtown Cleveland over the tracks of the city's trolley system. In 1920, a new line opened to East 55th. Since the new line was quicker, the interurbans took that instead. However, a shuttle remained between Coventry, the station we were just at, and the trolley system. It ran until 1923. Van Swearingens wanted their trains to enter downtown even faster. So what did they do? They bought a railroad, the nickel plate to be exact. That was in 1915. Owning the railroad meant that they could use the right-of-way to reach downtown Cleveland faster. By 1928, they also owned the Pere Marquette, the Chesapeake and Ohio, and the Erie Railroad. While their initial goal had been to use the right-of-way for the interurbans, you can imagine that owning so many major railroads in the eastern United States was a lucrative side hustle. So much so that on top of building a Union Station in downtown Cleveland, the Van Swearingens decided to also build a super tall office building above it. That's right, they didn't just build the neighborhood we're in, the train line we're on, they built the terminal tower too. The Great Depression hit the brothers hard, and in 1935, Mantis passed away. Oris died less than a year later, on board a train of all places. But their legacy remains. Cleveland is Cleveland because of how they shaped it. In 1944, the city of Shaker Heights bought the old interurban lines. They ran PCC streetcars on them. Finally, in 1975, the newly created RTA took over the lines. They renovated the tracks, introduced the Breda light rail vehicles, and named the lines the Green and Blue Lines.
Green Road, end of the Green Line, pretty fitting. Behind us, there's a turning loop. I don't think they really use it because the vehicles are bidirectional. But what I want to show you is just a few feet to the west of us.
Green Road opened in 1936 and has been the end of the line ever since. That's not to say there were never any plans to extend the line. In fact, some extensions were even partially built, just never finished and eventually dismantled. The loop at the end of the line was not dismantled. It was used back when the vehicles were one-directional, but today it just sits there. At this point, we're almost 10 miles away from downtown Cleveland. I noticed that the majority of the people on board stayed all the way until Green Road, because we skipped most of the stops between Coventry and Green Road. I think we actually only stopped at one.
So this is the station I wanted to show you. It's called West Green, and it's so close to Green Road. I think it takes the train about 20 seconds. It's about a minute walk. You can literally see Green Road back there. Why are two stations so close together? Well, you may notice the large parking lot between the two stations. Green Road is kind of a park and ride station, and the parking lot is big enough that they thought they should add West Green to serve people who park at the west end of the parking lot. So this station serves the park and ride of the other station. It's kind of bizarre. There's no cars here, so I doubt this station was used today. Cleveland is a really cool city. I want to come back here and do more like real sightseeing, like go to the waterfront, explore downtown, some of the neighborhoods. Unfortunately, the Greyhound schedule from Detroit is pretty bad, so you can't get in here till 3, and I have to leave now. So let's go back to Tower City and ride the Red Line to the airport.
So here comes the fun part. Right now, westbound Red Line trains aren't leaving from the main Tower City Station complex. They're leaving from a hidden station that is separated from the main station. To find the entrance to these platforms, you actually have to walk away from the main concourse. Instead, you walk into the mall, until you see a pair of doors that really look like they would be for staff only. Go through them and find yourself in an eerily quiet staircase, which you have to take all the way down.
So this is really cool. To hop on the Red Line to the airport from Tower City, we're using the secret platform. You can't access it through the regular concourse. You have to use this hidden entrance inside the mall.
Welcome to the abandoned platform at Tower City, which for right now is not so abandoned, serving terminating Blue and Green Line trains as well as westbound Red and Waterfront Line trains. The platforms are low level, and in the back there is a temporary looking structure that you can use to get up to the Red Line level.
This is so cool. This part of the station is normally never open, but they're doing some work here, and so the westbound trains are stopping here. I didn't realize this was open. This makes the trip even better.
These are the original interurban platforms from back in 1930. While most of the space in Cleveland Union Terminal was dedicated to the railroads, the Van Swearingen included a dedicated section for their interurbans coming from Shaker Heights. These platforms survived all the changes at Tower City, although not unaltered. This area finally closed in 1990 when the RTA opened the platforms that we looked at earlier. However, it wasn't demolished, and it was actually reopened on several occasions to accommodate for different projects. In 2016, 2017, 2024, and most recently in 2025, which is ongoing. Now we are on our last rapid of the day, a Red Line train to the airport. Did you know that the RTA Red Line was the first rapid transit line in the US to serve an airport? The Red Line was another brainchild of the Van Swearingen brothers. However, they never lived to see it get built. Instead, the Cleveland Transit System, the company that operated the city's old streetcar lines, built and opened it in 1955, right after they shut down the last trolley line. By 1968, it reached the airport, becoming the country's first airport rail link. Today, we've come to expect a train to the airport, almost as something standard, and in many cities, it is, with a few notable exceptions, of course. In 1975, the RTA was formed to take over the CTS line, aka today's Red Line, and the two Shaker Heights lines, today's Green and Blue. I'll show you the airport station at the very end of the video, but right now, let me share some of my final thoughts after my first time riding Cleveland's public transport system. See, if you're somebody like me who really likes to explore new places on transit and see all the weird stuff that a transit system has to offer, the RTA is just perfect. Like, there's so many oddities, so many quirks, it makes for a really fun day of exploring. Now, of course, if you're a commuter, I could imagine that there are things that you wish would be better. There should be more stations downtown. I thought the headways were pretty bad. Like, I waited a long time for that Green Line train. My sincere hope is that the RTA has enough funding to seriously invest in the region, because this system has really good bones.
This is like the coolest airport station ever. You've got these airplane mosaics on the floor, then the station signs are a mosaic runway with these little model airplanes on them. It's so well done, I love it.
The airport station was completely renovated in the early 1990s. It features ceramic artwork created by Angelica Pozzo. The platform is located only a short underground walk away from the main terminal building. I mean, this station, what a fun way to end the video, but also what a fun way to be introduced to the city if you're landing here and taking the train. It's definitely making me want to come back to Cleveland. I think that I'm going to plan another trip, maybe when the new trains come out. Of course, when that day comes, you'll want to be there, so subscribe to Trains Are Awesome.
All right, that is a very short walk from the platform to the airport terminal. It's almost as nice as at DCA.
Thank you so much for watching today. We'll see you next time.